here. You with me? On these steps, on the southern wall of the Temple Mount. If you were a pilgrim coming here for the 3-foot festivals, you would probably have started right down there, the city of David below us, and this whole thing towered into the sky, as Josephus said, looked like a mountain of snow glistening in the sun. Something breathtaking that you would approach with great reverence. And to help you approach with great reverence, these steps are not equal in their depth, in their height. Can you see they go? See where that man is crouching? You see they've been reconstructed. The ancient ones are where I'm standing. But can you see you go up one that's narrow, and then there's a deep one, and then there's a narrow one, and then there's a deep one. Narrow and deep. You don't rush up to the temple, and you don't leave in a hurry. You can't rush up steps that aren't equal. You have to approach it in a dignified and respectful manner. And there is one row of steps here and another on the other side. Rabbis say that people went in one side and came out the other. And the only people that went in the opposite direction was somebody who was in mourning. So if you passed somebody in the opposite direction, you knew that they had suffered a loss in their family, and then you would say as they passed you, I share in your sorrow. That's what people say in Israel to this day, I share in your sorrow. So it was like one-way traffic, up and down, except for people who were in mourning, who went the opposite way, and people would identify with their loss. So people would come. There are many mikvaot, many ritual baths all around this part of the hill. All this great archaeological garden here is a mixture of different periods of time. There's stuff that's Byzantine, there's a lot of Byzantine stuff here, residential houses, but we're not really too bothered with that at the moment. We can say that on these steps for sure Jesus passed. On these steps for sure. There aren't many places where you can touch down. This is one place. And I don't know, Pastor, have you heard the story of Neil Armstrong coming to Jerusalem? Well, evidently Neil Armstrong came to Jerusalem and stood on these steps with the mayor of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek. We have a famous mayor. He's no longer, he's an old man now, but he was a great mayor of Jerusalem. And as you probably know better than I do, Neil Armstrong is a practicing Christian, am I correct? And he stood here and he said that although he was stood on the moon, this was a more precious moment to him. Because this is the way his Lord had passed. So this is a pretty special place to be. This is the focus of religious life, was this temple. And when it was destroyed, of course, people wept for it. People mourn for this. Every year, on the 9th of Av, the Jewish 9th of Av, people fast in memory of the destruction of the temple. God's house was destroyed. That is a traumatic experience of enormous proportion. And this had been the focus of faith. God dwelt here. Beit HaMikdash in Hebrew means the holy house, the sanctified house. Beit is a house. This was the house of the Lord. This is where his presence rested. So to destroy it physically was a cruel and vindictive act. And from the point that the Jewish temple was destroyed, Jewish life moved. The rabbis moved to a place called Yavne by the coast and started to formulate a Jewish prayer service that would take place in synagogues. Up till then, synagogues had been places of learning, of reading the Torah, but not of praying. And prayer then took place in synagogues. Synagogues became houses of worship. So this was a really cruel and terrible moment for the Jewish people, and eventually they weren't allowed to be in Jerusalem at all. After the second revolt, they were dispersed. all around the world, and those Jews who were here moved up to the Galilee, and we saw some of the synagogues, didn't we, at Capernaum, and at Katsrin we saw ancient synagogues. Now, if you want to see one of the entrances to the temple, it's a little difficult, but if you look behind you to that, see the bush in the corner, and just below the bush are some big stones, just below the bush. There's 3 big stones, and then another one with a framework, and then there's something that sticks out, isn't there, above the window. That's later. That's not the entrance to the temple, or the exit. We're sitting near the exit. The stones above, those big smooth stones, they're part of the portal, part of the gateway that led out of the temple. And if you remember the pilgrim coming in the film, he went in a doorway, gave his tax to the priest, and then went up the stairs, up a passageway, and came out on top on the platform, where he was blinded by the magnificence of the temple. So that is part of the ancient doorway. And the great stone, we can walk up the steps if you like. We'll just have 5 minutes here to walk around.